The noise his phone made wasn't a ringtone. It was the sound of a country clearing its throat to tell you the worst thing you'll ever hear. He flinched awake to a shriek of electronic bagpipes, the screen beside his pillow white hot and strobing, the words already running ahead of sense. He didn't understand them all at once. Human brains slow walk bad news, but he understood the number. 22. A small number. The number between now and nothing. Before the alert, before the word impact got its teeth in him, there'd been the quiet day he'd wanted all year. A slate blue loch framed by heather, a peat tang in the air so clean it felt medicinal, and the whispery flap of pages when the wind caught his paperback. He'd driven as far north and west as his nerves and petrol allowed, past the loping curves of the road, into a valley the GPS rendered as a grey-green smear with a single vein of road. The place locals call a glen, and the maps called something Gaelic he couldn't pronounce. He'd rented a whitewashed holiday let that squatted above the water like a gull. 1 bedroom and a square of kitchen. The kind of place with a narrow TV and a cluster of mismatched mugs. It wasn't nowhere. He could see a roof across the water, smaller than his palm. A little shape for smoke to curl from in the evenings, if someone chose to light it. There was a single bar of 4G most of the time, if he stood at the kitchen window and held the phone up like an offering. That was the rule he made for himself. Remote enough to breathe, not so remote he couldn't call home. He'd told his mother where he'd be. Up near Gairloch, near enough anyway. And she'd said, uh-huh, in the way that meant I love you, and I don't understand you. And also, we're not finished arguing about the thing we left unfinished. They'd been circling a stupid fight for 2 weeks about nothing. The recycling bins, actually. Who forgot to take them out? And she'd said, if you're going to sulk all the way to Scotland. And he'd said, I'm not sulking. And they both knew he was. He'd stopped halfway up and bought a pie from a petrol station and eaten it cold. And it tasted perfect. Like he was 19 again, and everything cheap was delicious. At the cottage, he'd made a cup of tea, and then another, and another. Because tea was the way you said this is fine, while your hands learned a new place. He'd walked down to the shore with his paperback, and leaned his back against a boulder warmed by the weak sun, and watched a midge cloud convulse like a curse over the reeds. The water skinned smooth under a sky like brushed steel, and the hills on the far side were the exact colour of old pennies. He'd read 20 pages, and then none, and then the same 20 again, because the air did the kind of job to his head that books only dream of. He'd slept the sleep of a man who'd outdistanced all of his noises, both inside and out. Which is why the shriek from the phone blew him straight up from the pillow. Heart jackhammering so hard, for one graceless second, he thought that was the emergency. He snatched the phone. Words boiled up through the light. Emergency alert. Nuclear incident. Missile launch detected. Estimated time to impact in the UK, 22 minutes. Seek immediate shelter. Go in. Stay in. Tune in. Official information to follow. His name was Colin, and like anyone who'd spent the last year doom scrolling, hearing ICBM on podcasts and tensions on the radio, The words looked familiar, the way a nightmare sometimes uses your own living room. Even so, his mind tried for an out. It tried hoax, and then test message, and then that thing in Hawaii that one time. His thumb went greedy on the screen. He went for Twitter out of the old reflex. It wasn't called Twitter anymore, but he still called it that. And the feed didn't move. Little grey placeholders snickering. He backed out. He hit the BBC News app. A banner popped up. Live, government emergency broadcast. Shelter immediately. The link wouldn't open. He shoved himself out of bed so hard, his shin bit the frame, and staggered down the short, mean hallway to the lounge, where the TV sat like a solemn child. The remote was where he'd left it, aligned with the edge of the coffee table, because people who want control put their remotes like that. He had to jab the power button twice. The screen bloomed to a bright red, and then to a title card he'd never seen in his life. The kind of thing you imagine exists and hope never to see. Official UK government message. A nuclear attack has been launched against the United Kingdom. Go in, stay in, tune in. Seek the best available shelter now. The audio came in a tick after. A calm, clipped voice that had been hired specifically for its calm. And it said, "This is an emergency message from the UK government. Nuclear weapons have been launched against the United Kingdom. Impact is expected shortly. Please seek immediate shelter. If you are indoors, stay there. Move to the middle of the building, away from windows. If you're outdoors, get inside the nearest building immediately. Do not attempt to travel. Do not look at the fireball. After the blast, remain inside until told otherwise. Further instructions will follow. This message will repeat." The voice paused. A new voice read the same words in Welsh. Then the calm voice returned and said them again, as if repetition could sand down the edges. At the bottom of the screen, a clock had started. It read 21:42. He stood with his hands on his knees, like he'd just run a race. For a stupid second, he thought of the pie, the petrol station in Inverness, the woman at the till saying, "Heading on or back?" and his own voice saying, "On." And the neatness of that now, like a punchline written in a different room. He reached for his phone again and jabbed Mum. The call didn't even try to ring. It failed at once. A little red text that might as well have said you and everyone else. He tried Mum again, as if the number might be different this time. Call failed. He tried Sophie, his sister, and then Dan, his friend who made fun of his playlist, and then Mum again. And the calls stacked up on the screen like plates in a sink. He typed with thumbs that felt like someone else's. "Are you seeing this? Are you okay?" He sent it to everyone who might need him, and then he sent it to people who didn't, and then he sent it again. When the phone wouldn't send his words, he sent his voice because it felt heavier, as if a recording might punch through where text would bounce. He said, "Mum, it's me. I'm up near the loch. I'm okay. Please pick up. I'm sorry about the bins, alright? I'm sorry about everything that's stupid." The words were slippery. It felt like he was trying to nail something in a house that was already falling. The TV voice was still speaking. The clock read 20:54. He looked at the cottage like it was a diagram. The bathroom had no window. The hall had one, small and high. The bedroom had the big one that looked down to the water. The lounge had two. There was a kitchen with a microwave the size of a lunchbox. What's the best available shelter in a room that was built to be pretty on a booking site? He'd read articles about this with half his eyes, while the world got spiky. If you can't get below ground, put as much mass as you can between you and the outside. Water, books, doors, mattresses. He had those. He had a bathroom. He had 19 minutes left. He ran. He pulled the mattress off the bed and dragged it into the hall so it shrieked along the carpet. A sound his mother would have yelled about because it meant he was ruining things. He leaned it against the bathroom door and then changed his mind and yanked it flat. And then changed his mind again and made a tent out of it because that's what kids know. Tents make things safer. He took the internal door off its hinges with a screwdriver and dragged it to the hall and propped it against the mattress. He stacked the bookcase from the lounge on its side, the one with a shelf of paperbacks and a heavy book of Munro Walks and an atlas older than the internet. And he felt the weirdness of using stories as sandbags in a world where the story itself had become the flood. He filled the bath because he'd read that somewhere too, in the vast, useless library of fear knowledge. Fill anything that will hold water. He filled pans. He filled the kettle. He filled 2 plastic buckets he found under the sink. He remembered to put the plug in the kitchen sink, like a man ticking off stages of grief. The cold water slashed his hands. He went outside in his socks to drag in the patio chairs, because they were mass, and mass was the thing. And as soon as the door opened, the lock hit him with a brightness so clean it hurt. The day had opened, big and hard blue. The kind of cold you call invigorating when you have a coat. The low light made knives of the hills. He'd thought, ridiculously, that there would be sirens, that the sky would be different, that the air would carry a musk of end. But it smelled like peat and old grass and someone else's wood smoke. He looked across the water for the little roof. It was still there. He thought he saw a figure on the shore beside it, but at this distance, people and stumps were the same. He checked the phone out there, because the bar of signals sometimes went from maybe to yes if you held it up. 2 bars, 3 for a heartbeat. He stabbed the green phone icon. It rang and rang. "Mum," he said when it clicked. It wasn't his mother. It was a recorded voice, thick with grief because whoever'd recorded it had known what it would be used for. "All circuits are busy. Please try again later." He turned in a slow, useless circle because for a second he forgot what walls were for. He thought of getting in the car and pointing it south and choking the single-track road with his panic. And then what? He pictured the A9 turned into a pipeline of red lights. And he pictured being on it when the sky changed colour. The TV voice said do not attempt to travel. He didn't consider the voice an authority until he imagined himself on the open road and saw himself illuminated. He went inside. 18 minutes and 10 seconds. He put on jeans and a wool jumper. He put on socks that weren't see-through at the heel, because this was the sort of day when you put on better socks. It felt respectful. He added a fleece because he'd learned, walking, that fuel for the body was part of the problem now. He yanked the duvet off the bed and folded it in an ugly roll. He moved the little table into the hall and slid it against the door, and then put a chair on top, like some ceremonial stacking that would keep fire at bay. He turned the TV up because he hated that the voice could be drowned out by small cottage noises. The pipes, the refrigerator. The screen didn't change. It held its urgent red, like it owed that to someone. The ticker at the bottom started to cycle new language that made his mouth dry. If you're in the open, lie flat and cover your head. Cover your nose and mouth with cloth. Do not look at the flash. Do not use lifts. Wait for official advice before leaving shelter. He had the sense that the words were old. A script written long before streaming and the endless present. The kind of message laminated against decades. The phone trembled. Messages crawled in all at once, like ants through sugar. "What's happening? Sophie. Are you somewhere safe? Dan. I can't get through to Mum. Have you spoken to Mum? Sophie. You seeing this? Jay from work. The telly says get inside. Are you inside? His mother, at last. One of the messages that arrive green because they're not on the right cloud. The little speech bubble, a punch in the throat. He called her again. He was muttering, "Pick up, pick up, pick up," under his breath, like knuckles clicking on wood. It rang, and then didn't. He recorded a voice note instead, because that was like shouting through a window. "Mum, it's me. I'm inside. I'm at the cottage. I'm doing the stuff, all right? I'm in the hall. I'm stacking everything. Are you home? Please be at home. Go to the bathroom. No window. Well, the downstairs one has the small window, but just get into the middle, okay? Get the mattresses, bring the duvet, fill the tub, take some water. I'm sorry about the bins. I'm sorry. I love you." He sent it. The phone thought about it. It whooshed. He tasted metal. He realized he hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. He cut a heel of bread and spread a criminal amount of butter on it, because who was going to tell him not to? He stood in the little kitchen and chewed. His mind tried to ask practical questions, because that was its habit. What if it's only one? How far am I going to be from it anyway? Is Edinburgh a target? Glasgow? Do we even have targets anymore? Then, a different question came. Crooked and childish. What does a sky sound like when it ends? He put that one down somewhere so he couldn't find it. 1636. He went around the cottage and opened and closed things without knowing why. He took the batteries out of the smoke alarm because he didn't want it screaming when he needed the space in his head. He found the little wind-up torch the cottage owner had left for adventures, and the little printed card that said, "Bear with us if the power goes, we're remote," and laughed once. A bad sound. He slid the torch into his pocket. He found the first aid kit and opened it, not because he knew what he'd need, but because the white plasters in their orderly grid were a chapel to a world of small hurts, and he wanted to look at them like art. He checked his messages. Sophie again. "Mum is at the house. She says the telly keeps saying the same thing. She's under the stairs. She says she's cross with you for leaving all the washing up, but that she'll forgive you if the world ends." A smiley face. reckless. Another. Dad says stay where you are. She meant her dad, their mum's second, not his. A man who'd once tried to teach him to change a tyre and had given up when his knuckles bled. Not mean, just tired. He says the roads will be chaos and the police will be blocking things anyway. And to get in the middle of the house. Do you have a middle of the house? He wrote back, I've built a fort. Then, I love you. Then, because the world had changed. Tell Mum I love her. Send me a picture of her under the stairs. He regretted that last message as soon as he sent it. As if the request would summon proof he couldn't stand. She didn't send a picture. He sent, she says you're ridiculous. She says she loves you too. He cried then, in a small, efficient way, wiping with the heel of his hand. The TV voice said, do not go to the windows to look. He wanted to look. He wanted, with a huge and shameful hunger, to see something to make the dread in his chest earn its keep. He went to the kitchen window anyway, because there are times you can't help yourself. The world looked so exactly like itself, he wanted to throw something at it. The loch lay with a kind of innocence lakes get in photographs. The hills were bare. A cloud had tied itself to the highest point and was undoing. Across the water, he saw the little roof. And then, this time, a figure. Yes, standing at the edge. A man, he thought. With a dog? Or was the second body a child? Or was it a post, and he'd made it into a man? The figure lifted his arm. He lifted his hand back. He stared, and the figure went back into the house, which somehow felt worse than if it had waved forever. 15:01. He stepped into the hall where he'd made his mattress fort. It looked childish and brave. He crawled inside and sat with his legs pretzeled. His head pressed against the cool side of the bath, because there wasn't enough room to be the size he was. He pulled the duvet in after him, and then out again, because it made the space hot, and he hated the idea of being hot when the world did whatever it was about to do. He turned the torch once to feel its clockwork in his hand. The click of it was like a comfort, like the click of a dog's nails before the door opens. His phone rattled again. Are you watching the telly, Mum? He wrote back. Yes, you? It's very calm, she texted. I wish it would shout. That made him laugh, the better kind. He wrote, that's you all over. She wrote back, don't. He wrote, sorry. She wrote, do you have your coat on? He looked at the fleece. Yes. Good boy, she wrote. Then, I'm not ready yet for you to stop being my boy. He put the phone against his cheek. He said to no one, to the cottage, to the bath, I'm not ready either. He checked the TV. The clock said 13 minutes and 12 seconds left. The voice had been joined by music now. A gentle wash that was insultingly beautiful. The ticker added a new crawl. If you've taken iodine tablets, follow package instructions. He hadn't. He'd never bought them, because buying them would have made this more likely, like buying an umbrella. He dissolved into a fit of laughter. He thought, I should have bought more tins. He thought, I should have visited Mum last weekend, instead of watching football and eating chips. He thought, I should have learned to speak up before sorry was all there was left. Then he thought, this is a lot of thinking for someone who should be doing. And so he did more. He pulled a small bookcase from the bedroom and he slid it inside the bathroom on its side to make a wall. He stacked every book flat because he'd read that somewhere too, that paper's density did you a favour. He filled a rucksack with snacks and a bottle of whiskey and the paracetamol from the first aid kit. He reached for his passport and then paused. Because what border was he crossing? Why would he need it anyway? He put it in the bag anyway. He put a photograph in. Him and his mother at the pier, the summer he was 12. Both squinting like they'd been told jokes they didn't get. He put in a pen and a notebook, because he was the kind of man who put notebooks in bags. He put in one of the little packets of biscuits left by the cottage owner, the ones that said welcome. He went back to the window once more. The water had acquired a subtle wobble, as if a hand beneath had knocked the table. He wondered if that was just him and the small engine in his chest. He imagined, unhelpfully, what a blast would look like cresting a hill. He imagined a light so pure it erased shadows, and then you. He imagined the breath leaving the world like air out of a punctured lung. 10 minutes 58. His phone buzzed and he slapped at it with too much hope. Are you on the loo? His mother wrote. No, why? He wrote back. I am, she wrote. I decided that if I'm going to die, I'm not doing it needing a wee. Also, at least this room has a door I can lock against the end of the world. He could see her writing that, could see the little purse of her lips. He loved her then, with a size that made him dizzy. He wrote back, "You'll be fine, don't worry." "We'll see," she wrote, which was the most honest thing his mother had ever said. He sent back, "I'm sorry I raised my voice last week. I didn't mean to. You were right about the bins." He could admit anything now. The weight came off him in little slivers. She sent back, obviously, then, "I love you. Stop fiddling and sit still." He put the phone down like it contained a small god. He crawled under his fort again. He arranged himself in the bathroom so he could see a slice of the TV through the crack of the door frame. He wished for a radio, an old one with a dial that would pull voices out of the air like fish from a stream. He remembered he had one. The car. The thought came with a wild swerve. Should he sit in the car? Cars were Faraday cages, weren't they? Or was that just lightning? The TV voice said do not attempt to travel, so he decided against it. He compromised by jabbing the key fob and making sure the car was locked. Because one part of his brain was still doing neighbourly, reasonable things. He heard its faint chirp, loyal and pathetic. 9:14. Time shrank. It lost personality and became numbers counting down in a font that would have looked at home on a microwave. His mind did something it often did under stress. It wandered down aisles he didn't choose. He remembered the time he was 7 and his mother taught him how to fold paper into a fortune teller. Pick a colour, pick a number, open, close, pick again, and inside a command. Say sorry or hop on one foot. He remembered the way her thumbs worked the paper. the small joy of the creases. He realised he'd been practicing that exact motion all his life. Opening and closing and opening until the word inside was sorry. 7:52. The TV voice said, "If you're close enough to feel heat or hear the blast, shelter immediately." He made a sound he didn't recognise as his own. He felt the childish urge to call time out, like this was just a game, and he wanted it to end. 6 minutes and 3 seconds. He looked up. In the mirror over the sink, he saw himself at a strange angle, underlit. He looked older than he had yesterday, and much younger, both at once. He said to the mirror, "Okay, mate," and didn't recognise his voice. He put the pen and notebook on the closed toilet lid and struggled to come up with the words. Eventually, he decided to keep it simple. He knew she would never read it, but it didn't matter. He wrote a single word: Mum. Under it, he wrote, "I'm sorry. I love you." The phone went off again. A notification he hadn't asked for arrived from an app he didn't remember downloading. Civil defense. Impact warning. 4 minutes. Like a countdown to fireworks in a park, somewhere you had a blanket. He thought of fireworks. He thought of the new year by the river. Faces blue, white and open. The gasp that goes through a crowd when a good one goes up. He imagined that gasp turned inside out. He pulled the mattress closer. He pulled the door closer. He shut the bathroom door and then opened it to a finger's width, because a closed door felt permanent, like he'd never choose to open it again. He sat on the floor with his back to the bath, the duvet around him, the rucksack under his knees, the torch under his palm like a pet. He watched the TV. 3 minutes and 28 seconds. He listened to his own heartbeat. He heard instead a flock of geese somewhere over the loch, late or early, arguing as they went. He wondered if they would be illuminated too, if their wings would check and jerk in the heat. He thought, maybe the geese know to turn away. He put the phone to his ear like a seashell and pretended he could still get his mother's voice from it. He whispered into the dark of the mattress, "I love you." And it sounded like her words came back, warm. 2 minutes and 17 seconds. The voice on the TV was still calm. It was unnerving for it to be so calm when this was happening. The music had stopped. The message had become one line. "Impact imminent. Get down. Cover your head. Do not look at the flash." He pulled the duvet up to his ear. He pressed his forehead to the bath. The ceramic smelled like the seaside. 1 minute 41. He wanted to say clever things suddenly. Something that would be quoted by Sophie, if anyone was left to quote anything. Instead, his mind coughed up the small and the honest. "I wish I'd kept the plant alive in my kitchen. I wish I'd told Mum she was right more often. I wish I'd learned how to fix my brake light instead of bribing Dan with pizza. I wish I'd eaten the second half of the pie." The small things seemed like the only ones he could pick up. 1 minute and 9 seconds. His body did a thing bodies do. It tightened everywhere at once. A fist squeezing the outline of him. He thought, this is it. He thought of the word impact and realised it's a word made of two hard sounds that fail to tell you what they mean. He thought of being 7 and learning to spell it, the neatness of the letters, without realising exactly what it could mean. He spoke because it seemed necessary to put something into the air before it was too late. He said, out loud, not first person, but in a voice that perhaps wanted God to overhear. He's sorry he pretended not to need you. He's sorry he didn't appreciate the simple things. He's grateful for the times we had together. He said, quieter, because his voice felt like an animal. He loves you. 31 seconds. He pressed his eyes closed because he didn't trust them. He wedged his hands over his head, elbows to ears. His knees complained. He breathed in a structured way, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Primary school stuff. He thought to himself, please let this be a hoax. Please let this turn out to be nothing. 6 seconds. He drew in a breath big enough to sleep in. He let it out. He held the next one like a pocket of warmth. He felt the cottage bow a little, as if it were polite, as if it were taking a curtsy in front of something older. He thought, if anyone is listening after this, if anyone can hear this thought, tell her. He didn't finish it. He didn't have to. That was the last mercy the universe gave him that day, as the sky turned brighter than the sun.